I have been on a quest all my life. Started, funny enough, as a young boy. I grew up in what was then an isolated mountain community in North Georgia, and I was aware that we were poor, and I was aware that people around me were poor. I realized it because I had found the library and I had begun to read and begun to be interested in the history of our state. We were going through an election, I remember, in 1948, and I was about 12 years old at the time. And the candidate that was running, the favorite, the man who actually won, came to my town and came to the courthouse square and gave this long harangue about all the problems that we faced, particularly with the racial issue. And in these days, if you heard that speech, you would be appalled to listen to it. But I remember the tagline of the speech. It was that the greatest challenge facing our state of Georgia was maintaining our way of life. Well, I was 12 years old, but I remember looking around at the crowd. People still came to town in a horse and wagon even then. And you could tell by looking at them that our way of life was characterized by poverty and ignorance. And as I grew older, I wanted to commit myself to something that was going to be useful to my state and hopefully could make a living for me. And I read about this man running for mayor of Atlanta, Ivan Allen Jr. He ran on a program of 6 points for the 60s, it was called. And it defines the city that we have here today, MARTA, Major League Sports, all the other things. And it hit a chord with me. I said, that's somebody that I want to identify with. I was so naive, I tried to call him. Laughable in retrospect. It's amazing what you will do when you don't know any better. And of course, I didn't get past the first secretary who referred me to the personnel department, and I got probably the lowest rung on the ladder. I became a tax clerk for the city of Atlanta in 1962. But I worked at it and got transferred to the finance department and got involved with all the major happenings of the city in the 1960s, winding up eventually as the chief administrative officer for the city. And the 60s were a boom time in this town and in this state. We had elected a progressive New South governor in Carl Sanders, and things were happening here, and population was growing and development was taking on, and more importantly, we were inching up on that all-important statistic to me, which is average per capita income, and what percentage was Georgia compared to the rest of the nation. We started inching up ever so slightly, every year. We'd get the report. I would study it carefully. I then was offered the chance to go to the airport, which again to me was an economic development opportunity. Even in those days, tens of thousands of people were employed there. And in the 60s, it became the impetus for our great convention industry in this city and in this state. And I knew that the development of a large international airport would go a long way toward bumping that statistic a little bit more every year. And we went through a tremendous development program at the airport while I was there, which includes the passenger terminal that's there now, not the new international terminal, but the domestic terminal that's there now. And all new facilities, all done, and it was very successful. And then one day, which leads me to believe that the Lord plays a part in people's lives, after the construction project was finished at the airport, I get a call from the man who had just been elected governor, Joe Frank Harris. It was early 1983. He was just beginning his administration. And he was looking for someone to be the Commissioner of Industry and Trade, as it was then called. And I jumped at the chance because this continued precisely the track that my life was taking. And I felt overjoyed and I felt thankful that I had this opportunity to do that. And when I came to Industry and Trade, first meeting, every meeting started with, where do we stand on the per capita income of Georgia people? Are we going to make 100 while I'm here? I want to be here when we announce that we have reached 100% of the national average. We didn't quite make it. We got into the high 80s by the time I left, and later we got up to 95% in the early 2000s.